Alright folks, welcome back to another Bucephalus Dev Series tutorial. I'm your host Alex Singleton, CEO, CTO, and founder of Bucephalus Dev, headquartered right here in Kansas City. In this screencast, GoldenEye, running Bitcoin from space with Blockstream, I'll demonstrate how to download the entire Bitcoin ledger from space via satellite, free of charge, no subscription to Iridium or HughesNet necessary. Simply point a 36-inch satellite dish like the one mounted on the back of my pickup truck here and point it at the closest Blockstream satellite in range, which at this remote location from Kansas is Galaxy 18. Now why is this important? Well, let's say a place like Kansas City sustained an electromagnetic pulse had knocked out the entire power grid offline. Everything from running water to the internet would be out. So in this scenario, what would everyday people do to buy necessities if electronic payment services are knocked out? In the event of civil unrest, Bitcoin has already proven to be the de facto currency of choice, from places like Zimbabwe to Venezuela. There's no need for centralized authorities like the internet or power grid to conduct Bitcoin transactions. All we need is a generator, which in this case will be a 2016 Ram diesel pickup truck, which is as good as a Faraday cage as any in the event of an EMP. In this episode, we're going to Tarantino things around here a little bit. I'll conclude this introduction, then we'll transition back to the comfort and confines of my study, where I'll show you all how to bootload and install Ubuntu to a retrofitted MacBook. Then we'll transition back to my pickup truck here, where I'll provide a brief demonstration on satellite alignment onto Galaxy 18 for Blockstream service. I'm going to quickly list brief items here, a brief list of items that you need. Let me unlock my bed here. And what we have here, all we really need here is a retrofitted MacBook. In this case, it's going to be a Dell XPS. We've got a 12 gauge extension cord. We've got a 115 amp power supply, 115 volt power supply on board this EcoDiesel. So I'd recommend using a Triplite power surge protector rated for 2,160 joules. Probably overkill, but it'll work. You got a coax cable already mounted on the display there. I'm going to leave you all on your own to actually put that together. So there you have, we'll have that. Here's the power supply. The power supply will obviously connect into the surge protector there, but then you'll connect the coax cable here. The coax cable here is going to connect into something called the power to swim. That'll connect there, and then that'll connect onto the satellite dish on that. As you can see there, it's already, the coax is already connected, but that's connected to the LMB on board. That's basically going to be talking to the satellite or transmitting. And then this USB connection will basically take the data that's fed into this power supply here, and then it'll plug in right into the signal to IRD. So you plug it in there, and then that goes into the MacBook. So that'll be that. A few other things you might need here, just a hex wrench. This one's, I think, 7/16. Yeah, 7/16 hex wrench, and a pair of gloves. And that's really all you're going to need. So again, there goes that. That's the robotic intro to the Blockstream tutorial here. But let's go ahead. Let's get started in my study. Enjoy. All right, folks, welcome back to my study, where it obviously smells like many leather-bound netbooks and rich mahogany. Let's go ahead and get started with a brief overview. I'll briefly explain the rundown of this segment. First, we'll transition over to my desktop here. We'll guide everyone through the Ubuntu 18.04 ISO download and install. We're then going to take that ISO file and burn it onto a thumb drive like so. And then we'll take this thumb drive and bootload and install that over on this 2012 MacBook. And then everyone will sit shotgun with me as I guide everyone through that install. Then we'll transition back over to the desktop here. We'll pipe in locally through my network because it's a little bit better with the multimedia tools. And then I'll take everyone through the Blockstream service dependencies and download Blockstream service for that retrofitted Hackintosh, as it were. And then we'll do a quick test, and then we'll head back over to the Ironwoods Park where I will demonstrate proper satellite alignment and satellite acquisition of Galaxy 18 in order to run Blockstream service. So let's go ahead and start with the Ubuntu 18.04 download and install. Enjoy, folks. All right, folks, let's go ahead and begin with the download and install of Ubuntu 18.04. So let's toggle over to my other desktop here. I already have the Balena Etcher tool file. Fuck. All right, folks, let's go ahead and get started with the download and install of Ubuntu 18.04. Let's toggle over to my other desktop here, and I already have the Ubuntu repository pulled up here, and then we'll scroll down to my blog post where the instructions begin after the satellite assembly. Again, I'm going to leave you on your own to do that. It should be pretty straightforward, whatever you decide to go with, but I do provide in-depth, detailed instructions that begin at part 2 for this segment here. Configure Ubuntu 18.04. I do have another tutorial that I have already have this covered on downloading and installing Ubuntu onto a computer, like a mining rig. But for this scenario, we're going to be doing that on a retrofitted MacBook there. So again, slightly different, but should be pretty straightforward. So what you'll do here is you'll go to ubuntu.com, and then you'll go to download, and you'll select that 18.04. That's a more stable release. I think 19.10 could probably handle Blockstream, but I haven't tested it yet. So 18.04 is a more stable release. You'll click that, and then verify you'll download by. If this window doesn't prompt, you'll select download now, but it should. I've already I've already downloaded this ISO file, so it's on my desktop sitting there. That'll take probably, I don't know, it could take 10 minutes. I don't know, it could be 10 minutes, could be 20 minutes depending on your connection. But after that, it'll download to your downloads folder. If you can pull that out and stick it on your desktop like I've already done it over here, that would be great. And then let's see here. What else do we need to do? I do need to make sure that I have that thumb drive plugged in. So let's go ahead and unplug that. Make sure it's plugged back in there. Ignore. Okay. So that's good because I want to take everyone through formatting that for FAT32. So let's go ahead and begin with that now. Pull up disk utility, and then it'll be at USB 3.0 in my case. I'm going to select erase. Then I'm going to select format FAT. We'll call this Ubuntu ISO. And the scheme will just be master boot record, pardon me. And then you'll hit erase. Select that format. Should be good to go. All right, good. So that's formatted and ready for burning that ISO file. And we're going to do that with the Balena Etcher tool. So you'll go over here. I mentioned this in the instructions. You'll go over to the Balena Etcher. If you're using Windows, you can use Rufus. But from this tutorial, for the intents and purposes of this tutorial, we'll use Balena Etcher. You'll download that. Again, at this juncture, I'll assume that you're somewhat internet savvy and you can download and install zipped files, but go ahead and do that. You'll download, unzip that, install it, and run Balena Etcher. So at that point, let's see what we need to do here. We've got the drive formatted. So now we'll pull up Balena Etcher. I'm just going to pull it up now. And I've already selected the ISO file, but you would just go change, select your ISO file. It's on my desktop sitting there. I'm going to cancel. But I'm going to select the target. The target's going to be that thumb drive we just formatted. In my case, it was a 32 gigabyte USB disk. Select that, continue, and then flash. What I would like to mention here, if we do hit that error, which I mentioned in my blog post, yeah, see, if something went wrong, if it is a compressed image, please check that the archive is not corrupted. What you'll do is you'll fire up your terminal. I use iTerm. And you'll run this command that I outlined in that blog post. You see here, sudo applications balena.app contents macOS. Run that, copy and paste it into the terminal, and just hit enter. You'll be prompted for your system password. And then try it again after you let that cycle. So I'll hit select image. Again, that's going to be the ISO file. select target USB thumb drive, and it works. And this will take about 2 minutes. And then let's see here. Yeah, it took about 2 minutes to actually burn that ISO file onto that thumb drive we just formatted. A couple things that I'd like to just babble about while we wait for that to go. I'm going to stick that terminal over. The Mac OS Catalina has been very problematic, at least for me. I was actually forced to upgrade, was it VMware Spaces, and I just experienced issues with Balena Etcher after updating to Mac OS Catalina. In my opinion, that's been a very unstable Mac release, and quite frankly, I'm probably going to lean towards more of the open source distributions from here on out. For me, in my experience, Ubuntu 18.04 has been much more stable. I just purchased a Dell XPS. I purchased refurbished from Amazon. It was like half price almost, or about was about 60% off. I'm sorry, 40% off. But I purchased that. Love it, and it's running Ubuntu 18.04 much more faster than as it would Windows, that's for sure. And I just, like I said, for what you get, you just don't really get the bang for the buck anymore with Mac products. They're pretty to look at, but in terms of performance, if you're a developer like myself, you really want the bang for the buck on the performance side of things. And Ubuntu really is probably one of the best operating systems out there, and it's free. You're not encumbered by any license agreements or anything like that. But after this after this burns that ISO file onto that thumb drive, we'll transition over to my Osmo there, where you all will sit shotgun with me, and we'll guide you through that install. I can't run any sort of multimedia tool from that MacBook over there, so I have to use that Osmo. It's the best I can do, but it's pretty straightforward. It's actually not that hard to bootload and install Ubuntu and retrofit a MacBook to call it a Hackintosh. It's pretty cool, pretty easy, and you extend the life of an older MacBook like that. Like I said, it's much faster running Ubuntu 18.04 than it would be running Mac OS Catalina. So let's go ahead and let this flash, and then it'll validate. I think it'll take another 30 seconds. I'm trying to think what else I can talk about while we wait. Like I said, I mentioned all of those caveats within the first set of instructions here, and I will update this tutorial. I'll probably feature that once the screencast is finished. I'll probably feature it right there instead, in lieu of what is there now. But yeah, so again, we'll download and install this, and then the next step here, like I said, we'll be sitting shotgun over on my Osmo, and I'll take you through installing the Ubuntu 18.04 ISO file, and then after that we'll transition back over to my desktop here. We'll guide everyone through setting up the Blockstream dependencies, and then installing Blockstream. I want to do it from my desktop over here because again, the multimedia tools are much better, and I can pipe in locally through my network. So let's get going, folks. Should be good stuff here. So let's jump over where you all will sit shotgun with me on the Osmo. Enjoy, folks. All right, folks, now that I have you all sitting shotgun with me here on the Osmo, let's go ahead and prepare for the bootload and install of Ubuntu 18.04. Let's note a few things here first. I've already inserted the USB drive containing the ISO file, the Ubuntu 18.04 ISO file. Have that plugged into a USB port here. And then I also have an internet LAN connection plugged in as well, so we can do some brief updates before we switch back over to my desktop to pipe into this device locally, because the multimedia tools are better than the situation I have set up here with the Osmo. So one thing to note here I'm going to do. So I'm going to power on the device, and then I'm going to immediately hit the Alt-Option key on this Mac to load the boot menu. And then we're going to select, I think it was Boot EFI, one of the options. I'm going to toggle over to the right with the arrow key, and then I'm going to select Install Ubuntu from the drop-down menu. You'll see here, but I'm going to do things rather quickly because that's the way of the beast here. You have to kind of do things quickly or it will automatically boot. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and power on the device. Okay, I'm going to make sure it's turned off. And again, one thing I like to note is that I do have an instance already on this computer. So I'm going to erase the disk, and then I'm going to reinstall over it. So okay, I'm going to hit the Alt-Option key. Okay, then I'm going to select EFI boot. Then I'm going to select Install Ubuntu. And this should begin the install menu, or launch the install menu for Ubuntu 18.04. Okay, good. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and select English because we're in the United States. Go ahead and select English again. And the exposure here gets a little messed up, so I pardon me for that. I'm trying to do this here on the Osmo and simultaneously manage the install here. I'm going to select normal installation. Then I'm going to select erase disk and install Ubuntu. Actually, you know what? I'm going to select erase Ubuntu 18.04 LTS and reinstall. So we're just going to erase over the instance I already have installed here. And I'm going to select install and reinstall it now. You would probably want to select erase disk and install Ubuntu if you're doing this for the first time. I'm going to select Chicago. That's the time zone I'm in. I'm going to enter my name. Computer's name, I'm going to call it Hackintosh. So I'm going to access this by device name when we pipe in here locally back on my desktop. I'm going to select a username, and I'm just going to choose a real easy password to remember here that I hardly ever use for anything else. And then go ahead. Oops, they don't match. I could spell while I'm typing it. Sorry, it's hard for me to type over this keyboard here while the Osmo is there. So continue. So the install will take about 20 minutes. I'm going to let this cycle through. I really don't have much to say other than what I've already dropped on y'all about my experience with Mac OS Catalina, specifically with the Balena Etcher tool. I actually, just to confirm, I downloaded and reinstalled that, the updated version for Mac OS Catalina, and that worked. So the standard version, the prior version, didn't work with Mac OS Catalina. So again, I had to download and install the updated version so that it worked on Mac OS Catalina. I've also done the same thing with VMware Spaces, which we'll be using to pipe in from my desktop into this device here. You'll see what I'm talking about when we transition back to my desktop. But again, Mac OS Catalina has been very problematic. So just for you to take note. Again, I'm just going to let this sit here. What I'll probably do is pause. I'll pause the install. And once it's cycled through, we'll just go ahead and segue into that. It'll look real seamless here. And I'll come back on the mic or on the video here in a minute just to go through a brief set of instructions here before we go back onto my desktop. Okay, so the installation is complete. That was about 20 minutes, the elapsed time, I believe, as I said, in the introduction of this segment. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and click Restart Now. But then after I conclude this segment here on the shotgun segment, I'll call it, we will transition back on my desktop here while we'll pipe in locally through my network, and we'll see the desktop again. It'll all make sense. But what you'll do here is you'll click that button, Restart Now, and then you'll be presented with a start menu as if it were any other operating system. You'd enter in your username and password. So let's go ahead and transition back onto my desktop. Enjoy, folks. All right, folks, now that we've installed Ubuntu 18.04 onto that former MacBook, it is now a Hackintosh, smoothly running and ready to go for downloading the Blockstream dependencies and Blockstream service. I just wanted to briefly explain what we'll be doing. In the next segment here, we'll be transitioning onto my screen again on my iMac, and we will be piping in my local network. So again, that's running in the background, but again, for the sake of ease and the improvement or benefits of the multimedia tools within Mac, we're going to go ahead and do it on my desktop instead of the Osmo again over there. So enjoy.